a yellow hammer, come see how we rock this. Alabama fans the best, there's no way you can top this. Recruiting news and interviews, just sit back and watch this. Recruiting news and interviews, just sit back and watch this. The process.
Welcome into the process, Crimson Tide Recruiting. I'm your host, Justin Smith, the scouting and recruiting analyst, Touchdown Alabama magazine. Thank you guys so much for joining me today as we are looking to close out this week with another great show on Thursday's show. And I wanted to take a look at the Tide's recruiting efforts when it comes to the defensive back position on this episode, as the Tide picked up a verbal commitment from 2021 three-star athlete Kadarius Callaway on last night out of Mississippi. So I wanted to take a look at the Tide's other defensive backs that are still on the board, as well as take a look at how many defensive backs the Tide could possibly pull in the 2021 recruiting cycle. But before I dive deeper into that, I do want to hit you guys with a couple of recruiting updates. One of those updates do surround the Tide's push for the Brockermeyer Twins. So with that being said, let's get the process started. We're going to get these recruiting updates started with an update on the Brockermeyer Twins. Of course, the Tide is continuing to recruit both of these guys throughout this recruiting dead period. I actually got a chance to talk with their dad, Blake Brockermeyer, on today, and he talked with me about the chance and opportunity that he has to work with the Twins during their senior season as their offensive line coach at All Saints Episcopal School. He also talked about some of the different trainings he is doing with both of the Twins to improve their game heading into their senior season. He also talked about a possible decision time frame for the Twins. You guys can read about that article on touchdownalabama.com. Be sure to subscribe because it is a subscriber-only article, so you can read that article. I still feel a decision is on the horizon for them. I feel even stronger about that decision after my conversation with Blake Brockermeyer. I still feel the Tide is in a great position with the Brockermeyer Twins heading into that decision. The Tide is also still in the mix for several 2021 recruits, with recruits continuing to extend top school lists, showing that they are cutting down their top schools list. And one of those lists that the Tide was included in recently was the list put out by 2021 five-star defensive end Corey Foreman out of California. This is a kid who was committed to the Clemson Tigers, but he decommitted from the Tigers, reopened his options, and it looks like the Tide is at least still in the mix with Foreman, with him releasing that top 7 and including them. The Tide was also included in a top 5 released by four-star defensive end Tyreek Sapp, who is currently verbally committed to the Florida Gators. So it is a bit interesting that he even released a top 5, but it looks as if the Tide is still in the mix for the Florida Gator commit out of St. Thomas Aquinas in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Tide is also continuing to extend new offers. One of those offers today went out to 2022 defensive back Sherrod Colvin Jr. out of Virginia. This is the kid who got an offer from the Tide, and the offer actually came from Nick Saban. So you got a chance to talk with Nick Saban on today. You guys check out the article, his reaction to talking to Nick Saban on touchdownalabama.com. The link will be in the description of this video as well. The Tide's 2021 four-star wide receiver commit Corey Brooks also committed to the Under Armour All-America game, so he will participate in that game in January in Orlando, Florida, representing the University of Alabama as one of their commits. Something that's interesting about that particular event this season is the fact that Christian Leary, A.J. Hall, and Ja'Cory Brooks are now verbally committed to play in the UA All-America game. So it looks as if at this moment that all of the Tide's 2021 wide receiver commits will participate in the Under Armour All-America game. So that is something that's pretty interesting as well. So a lot is still going on with Tide recruiting news as always. Now I'm going to dive into a quick look at what the Tide's defensive back recruiting board will look like moving forward. To close out this episode of the process, I actually wanted to take a quick look at the Tide's defensive back group now that the Tide now has 3 defensive backs committed in the 2021 recruiting class. We're looking at Kadarius Callaway joining Devontae Smith, a 4-star cornerback out of Ohio, and 4-star safety Kane Williams out of Louisiana as the Tide's defensive back commits. I still feel that the Tide is looking to add 4 to 5 defensive backs in this class, most likely 5 now that they have 3 favorably committed, and I think we have to start possibly looking at 6 if the next 3 guys are the right guys at the Tide really want to add to their 2021 recruiting class, especially looking at their recruiting board. JaQuincy McKinstry is a priority. Terry Arnold told us on the process a couple of episodes back that Nick Saban told him he was their number 1 defensive back on their board. You're looking at Jason Marshall, a guy who the Tide is picking up momentum with out of Florida, the 5-star cornerback. You're looking at Kamari Lassiter, a 4-star defensive back out of Tuscaloosa, who's not getting talked about for real when it comes to the Tide pushing for him in the 2021 recruiting class. But this is a guy who the Tide's coaching staff has continued to be in contact with. When we're looking at Charles Kelly and Pete Golding, they have continued to stay in contact with Kamari Lassiter, so it's definitely a guy to watch out for. You got Kyrie Jackson, a JUCO defensive back, also to take a look at when it comes to the defensive back group for the Tide in the 2021 recruiting class. So I think Alabama has a bit of a good problem in terms of having so many targets still on the board for them in the 2021 recruiting class. It all depends on how many defensive backs they want to bring in. I'm leaning towards 5 at this very moment. 6 if it's the right guys. If they can get McKinstry, Arnold, Marshall, they would take all 3 most definitely. They would definitely want to take in all 3 of those guys. So I'm looking at that 6 more now with them picking up a surprise commitment from Kadarius Callaway on last night. But there are so many different defensive back targets still on the board for the Tide in 2021 recruiting class. Even Dejon Warren, you still have to keep an eye on him. Of course, the Tide offer him. He's a JUCO cornerback out of Lackawanna Community College, a guy who we had on the process a couple of episodes back as well, and he talked about his Alabama interest, a guy with a pretty interesting story. So the defensive back board is loaded for the Tide in 2021 recruiting class, and this is one of the Tide's deepest groups on the entire football team. So you know that Nick Saban is very involved with the defensive back group. He's very involved with their recruitment as well. So things starting to get very interesting when it comes to the top recruiting defensive backs in the 2021 recruiting class. So I think it's going to be a pretty interesting future in terms of those guys looking at possibly making a decision. Of course, we have to continue to keep our eyes on JaQuincy McKinstry, and I think it's important to keep your eyes on Jason Marshall as well, just because we have seen the Tide pick up their latest commitments from guys who have not visited. And we look at Jason Marshall, he's a guy that hasn't visited Alabama recently. This is a kid who has Alabama in his top 3. He is still considering them, so that he is definitely a kid to watch out for. That would do it for this episode of The Process. Thank you guys so much for joining me on Touchdown Alabama's YouTube page. Go ahead, hit that subscribe button before you leave. Then head over to touchdownalabama.com. Pick up a subscription. With that subscription, you will be able to read all of our subscriber-only articles and also get your hands on our yearly print magazine issues. So go ahead and get that subscription at touchdownalabama.com. Then head over to your app store, whether that is the Google App Store or the Apple App Store. Go ahead and download the Touchdown Alabama app, and with that app you'll be able to stay updated on everything Alabama football with that Touchdown Alabama app. As always, I am Justin Smith, the scouting and recruiting analyst for Touchdown Alabama magazine.